Meet Elizabeth Sparkle, a fading celebrity who's desperate to get back the fame and glory she's lost over time. Enter the substance, a mysterious liquid that claims to fix all her problems but only brings new ones. The movie kicks off with a bizarre scene involving an egg yolk injected with a green goo that makes it duplicate. Fast forward to the Walk of Fame, where they're setting up Elizabeth's star. Once a hot celebrity, she's now barely a memory to most. As the story unfolds, we see Elizabeth still hosting her aerobics show, celebrating her birthday when she awkwardly walks into the men's bathroom. There, she runs into Harvey, who's clueless about her presence and is busy looking for a younger replacement for her show, oblivious to how long Elizabeth has held onto her gig. After a harsh conversation about revamping the show, Elizabeth feels sidelined due to her age. On her way home, she sees her younger self coming down from a billboard, and in her distraction, she gets into a bad accident. Miraculously, she's unharmed, but the emotional fallout hits hard, leading to a breakdown at the hospital. After an awkward doctor's visit, she finds a mysterious flash drive in her pocket labeled "The Substance," along with a note promising real change. When a guy named Fred approaches her, remembering her from school and handing her his number, she feels uncomfortable and bolts, realizing she's been fired from her own show. Confused and upset, Elizabeth checks out the flash drive, which reveals a voice promising her a younger, more beautiful version of herself through a simple injection that taps into her DNA. This substance offers her a week of looking and feeling amazing. But there's a catch. She'll revert to her original self the following week. No matter how many versions of herself she creates, she'll always be who she truly is. The video wraps up, leaving Elizabeth stunned by the crazy stuff she just saw, and she tosses the recording in the trash. Later, we find her at a bar, trying to drown her sorrows in drinks, only to end up stumbling home and throwing up in front of the bathroom mirror. She can't stop staring at her wrinkles, desperately trying to remember the days when she was the radiant Hollywood star. But those memories just don't cut it anymore. Eventually, she makes the bold choice to dig the USB drive out of the trash and calls the number on it to place her order. After jotting down the address they give her, the next morning she flips through the newspaper and finds a casting call to replace her on her own show. The ad specifies they're only looking for women aged 18 to 30, cranking up her frustration even more. Checking her mail, she finds an envelope with the substance's symbol containing just one number. Driven by a fierce desire to reclaim her life, Elizabeth heads to the address she scribbled on her hand. She walks through the city's suburbs until she reaches a locked door. Using the card from the mail, she unlocks it and steps into a dark, dingy hallway. At the end of the hall, she finds a white room filled with drawers. Searching for her number, she pulls out a cardboard box. Back at her lavish home, she opens the package to find instructions for the process, including an activator, stabilizer, and all sorts of mysterious supplies for the procedure, along with unsettling warnings. Determined to go through with it, she stands in front of the mirror, examining every inch of her body, every spot, bump, wrinkle, and mole. Remembering the video's promises of a better version of herself, she takes the activation capsule and draws the green liquid into a syringe. She ties off her arm with a rubber band, disinfects the spot, and finally injects the substance. Elizabeth stares in the mirror, anxiously waiting for any sign of change. At first, nothing happens, and she chuckles, getting ready to leave. But then, out of nowhere, a wave of dizziness hits her, followed by intense pain that knocks her to the floor, leaving her writhing until the agony finally eases. As she lies there, her back begins to shift and contort in unsettling ways, seemingly peeling her skin back. Her eyes struggle to stay in their sockets as a new form starts to emerge from that opening in her back. This figure awkwardly rises and gazes at Elizabeth's body sprawled on the floor. As it stands, the mirror reflects a young, stunning woman, leaving the scene utterly bewildering. The eyes of this new Elizabeth have a faint green glow, and she's captured by her own curves. But as she admires her new self, she glances back at the lifeless body she just emerged from and vomits a disgusting green fluid. With no other choice, she grabs a needle and thread, stitching up the opening in her old self's body. Once done, she leans in to feed the Matrix, injecting the substance directly into her vein, fully embracing her new reality. Now, Elizabeth has split into two versions. The young, radiant version of herself spends the night in bed while her lifeless body, the Matrix, lies on the cold bathroom floor. Even her voice sounds different, and just hearing it makes her nose bleed, reminding her she needs to take her daily stabilizer. This involves extracting white liquid from her old body with a giant syringe. Fighting to stay conscious, she injects one of the 7 capsules into her leg. With her youth, beauty, and flexibility restored, she glances at the newspaper ad looking for her replacement and heads straight to the audition. On the way, she picks up a provocative outfit to make a statement. At the audition, the judges have been unimpressed by dozens of girls who didn't meet their beauty standards. But when they see her flawless, curvy figure, they're speechless. They ask her name, and she confidently says, Sue. Next, we see Sue at Harvey's mansion, the producer of the show. He's thrilled, calling her the perfect replacement for the old Elizabeth. He tells her the show will premiere in 2 weeks. Before the meeting ends, she mentions a scheduling conflict, saying she needs to leave town every 2 weeks to care for her mother. Harvey, obsessed with his new star, promises to work around any inconvenience to keep her on set. As Sue walks home, she starts getting attention she hasn't had in years. The next 6 days are filled with managing her stabilizer routine and glamorous photo shoots, posting her flawless image everywhere. Despite her busy week, she doesn't neglect the Matrix's needs, carefully managing everything. But by the end of the 7th day, the last bit of food for the Matrix runs out. Sue connects the IV between them, and when the blood from old Elizabeth enters her system, Sue suddenly faints. Moments later, the usual version of Elizabeth wakes up from her strange coma, feeling the weight of the unconscious young woman on top of her. She pushes her off but notices a sharp pain in her back. Despite seeing her perfect younger version lying beside her, she decides to continue with life, knowing normalcy is a thing of the past. That morning, Elizabeth heads to the recording set, where Harvey has already taken down all her photos from the hallways. When he sees her, he smiles and says he's been waiting to buy her a drink. Instead of celebrating, Harvey hands Elizabeth a box of her stuff, saying the team got her a farewell gift. His words don't bring her any joy, and after a brief goodbye, he walks away. Back home, Sue's lifeless body is still lying on the cold bathroom floor. Elizabeth starts carefully tracking the days she switches bodies with Sue, noting which ones belong to each of them. On day 2, she checks the mail and finds a letter from her mysterious supplier, saying her next batch has been delivered to the usual spot. After picking it up, Elizabeth checks how much food Sue has left, knowing Sue will take over next week, while she remains lifeless in the bathroom. Elizabeth spends days tearing down part of her bathroom wall, searching for a hidden space. A neighbor, annoyed by the noise, comes over to complain, but Sue, pretending to be a new tenant, smooths things over. When Sue gets back inside, she locks Elizabeth's body in the secret room she's created and replaces old photos in the house with new ones that reflect her identity. Sue thrives on her new TV show, dazzling everyone with her youthful energy and getting a standing ovation from her co-workers. As her week of glory comes to an end, she gets ready for a night out with her castmates, determined to enjoy her youthful body. However, her stabilizer starts running low, and she feels off. Rushing home, she finds Elizabeth finishing her meal. Sue remembers she's supposed to switch versions, but takes another stabilizer capsule to extend her time, even though her turn is up. She goes back to the party, but things take a weird turn. Her insides start spilling out, and she rushes to the bathroom in a panic. When Elizabeth wakes up, she finds herself dealing with the mess Sue left behind, including her body showing signs of rapid aging. Elizabeth calls her supplier in desperation, but they tell her that since she and Sue are the same person, there's nothing to be done, and they must respect the balance between them. After some time, Sue takes over again but notices something odd during a shoot. She feels a strange lump on her body and discovers it's a giant chicken leg from Elizabeth's bad diet. Furious, she complains to the operator, but the answer's the same. They're both the same person, so it can't be justified. Later, Sue returns to the set and learns she's now hosting the New Year's special. Determined to stay in control, she starts taking the substance daily, messing with their schedule. This results in side effects on Elizabeth, whose body is rotting badly. Elizabeth complains again, but the operator reminds her that, as the Matrix, she has the power to end the whole situation if she wants. But Elizabeth is warned that the damage she's done to herself can't be undone, but she can stop it from getting worse. Despite the warning, she's like, "Nope, not going back to my awful life." However, she starts feeling the consequences of her actions. She's just chilling on her couch when she realizes her joints are failing her, and from that point on, she's in constant pain, having to deal with it all by herself. While she's prepping some recipes, she notices a cookbook Harvey gave her, and then she catches an interview with Sue on TV. As she watches, her hatred for Sue skyrockets. The host even says everyone thinks Sue is the perfect replacement for Elizabeth Sparkle, which only makes things worse. Things get even messier when Sue admits that she never watched Elizabeth's old shows, claiming they're from different generations and that Elizabeth's show was more for older women. This comment fills Elizabeth with rage. Fueled by resentment, she starts cooking more dishes, trying to prove that Sue is just a cheap imitation. Meanwhile, she listens closely to the last question the host asks Sue. "What's your beauty secret?" Sue, being all calm, says she's just being herself and credits her good nature. This drives Elizabeth up the wall. She loses it, smashes the TV, and even blocks the windows to avoid seeing anything related to Sue. She feels totally powerless, trapped in her feelings, convinced that Sue has stolen everything from her. As Elizabeth's situation worsens, she decides to extract as much fluid as possible from her matrix, basically her life source, to avoid having to go back into it. She pulls out way too much fluid, leaving her body in a decrepit state on the floor. Fast forward 3 months, and it's almost time for the New Year's Eve program, where Sue's about to make her big debut into ultimate stardom. But the night before her big moment, Sue runs into a problem. She's looking for more stabilizer fluid in the bathroom, but all she finds is rotten liquid. Panic sets in as her entire plan seems like it's about to fall apart. Desperate, she tries to hide from her partner in the apartment and calls her supplier, begging for more stabilizing fluid. Unfortunately, the guy on the phone tells her she'll have to wait for the liquid to regenerate. Sue's in pain, realizing the only way to save herself is to switch with her other version, which would restart the fluid process. But she refuses, insisting she doesn't have time because her presentation is next day. She collapses in the kitchen, barely able to move, and drags herself to the bathroom. As she scrambles to get what she needs, her partner hears the commotion, but luckily doesn't see her in her disgusting state. When she finally gets a moment alone, Sue searches for her phone, hoping to call her supplier and stop the whole experience. But it's too late. The next morning, she gets notified that her final package has been delivered. Covering herself with rags, she rushes to the suburbs to pick it up, then drags Sue's body back into the living room. Inside the package, she finds a syringe with a black liquid that's supposed to end everything. Just as she's about to inject Sue, she hesitates, hearing the man's voice in her head, reminding her that this won't fix anything. It'll just take her back to where she started. Despite the warning, Elizabeth plunges the syringe into Sue's chest, but she suddenly remembers her own glory days in the spotlight and regrets taking this chance away from Sue. She doesn't finish the injection and accepts that she needs Sue to succeed. But it's too late. Sue starts bleeding uncontrollably. Elizabeth panics and tries to find a way to make the switch back, but Sue's body has stopped responding. In a desperate attempt to fix everything, Elizabeth stabs the needle into her own heart, trying to revive herself. To Elizabeth's shock, Sue wakes up. This shouldn't be possible. They're not supposed to be conscious at the same time. Sue, realizing what Elizabeth tried to do, snaps. Filled with rage, Sue attacks Elizabeth, and they both fight for survival. Elizabeth manages to lock herself in the bathroom, but the door doesn't hold. Sue breaks in, hits Elizabeth, and forces her to look in the mirror before smashing her head into the reflection. Elizabeth, now a weak, crumbling figure, tries to crawl away, but Sue easily catches up, beating her until Elizabeth is nothing but a broken heap on the floor. But then Sue has a moment of realization. They're the same person. She starts crying, knowing she's just signed her own death sentence. Despite this, she has a big show to do, so Sue heads to the set for the New Year's Eve special. Everyone praises her beauty, but she can feel something is wrong. She rushes to the bathroom, where one of her teeth falls out. As the pressure of the show mounts, her whole body starts falling apart. Her nails, ears, everything. Desperate, she races home and grabs a syringe of the activator fluid, hoping it'll restore her. But the fluid doesn't work the way she hopes. Instead of becoming her beautiful self again, Sue turns into a monstrous creature, a grotesque mutation caused by the faulty fluid. This creature, now calling itself Elisa, decides to wear the beautiful dress Sue used to wear and heads to the bathroom. There, it sticks a picture of Elizabeth on its face before stepping out for the biggest show of its life. Elisa walks onto the stage, and although the audience is expecting Sue, they don't realize that this horrifying creature is standing in front of them. As the show begins, the creature's mask disintegrates, revealing a terrifying, deformed face. Chaos erupts as the creature's limbs start breaking, and blood splatters everywhere. The audience is horrified. Despite the panic, the creature remains conscious, even after it falls apart. In its final moments, the monster crawls back to the place where Elizabeth Sparkle's fame began, closing the chapter on her once glorious life. While The Substance is undeniably a standalone film that doesn't overtly demand a sequel, it leaves viewers pondering several unanswered questions by the end. This choice could be a deliberate artistic strategy to enhance suspense or engage the audience's imagination, and it's clear that Farjeet masterfully utilizes ambiguity to enrich her narrative. For instance, the film teases intriguing details, like the financial cost of the substance, the number of users, and the identity of the supplier, without providing definitive answers. These gaps might frustrate some viewers, but they also invite deeper reflection and discussion about the film's themes. Ultimately, the effectiveness of The Substance lies in Farjeet's sharp eye for striking imagery and her skillful metaphorical storytelling, which makes the overall experience captivating despite the missing pieces. The unresolved aspects may leave audiences curious, but they also highlight the film's complexity and the director's ability to provoke thought long after the credits roll. By keeping certain elements shrouded in mystery, The Substance becomes a conversation starter, prompting viewers to engage with its world and draw their interpretations. And that wraps up today's video. If you want to stay updated on all the latest movie recaps, be sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. This way, you'll be in the loop for all our future updates. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one.